Hi everyone, this is Dawn McCaw, and I am the Senior Career Specialist for Fine and Performing Arts, and this is another episode of the Arts Chat. And today I have a special guest on, and I'll be bringing him on in just a moment. But again, I'm Dawn McCaw, the Senior Career Specialist for Fine and Performing Arts, and this is another episode of Arts Chat. Okay, here's my guest. Perfect. Hang on in just a moment. Hi, Rob. How are you?
Hey, Dawn. How's it going?
Is it okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Cool.
All right, so I'm going to introduce you, Rob. Rob Mostransky is a graphic designer, and he got his BFA at New Paltz in '08. Currently, Rob is the Vice President, Senior Director at Goldman Sachs, and he's also the brand strategy consultant for REM Designs. And then a little bit about Rob and what he does is, I'll ask you to, Rob, provides branding, graphic design, and art direction to a diverse clientele that bridge the cross sections of fashion, sports, music, real estate, and entertainment. So thanks for joining. And we have guests already waving and they're on. So good morning, everyone. Okay. So Rob, you can introduce, I'm just going to jump. Please tell us about yourself and your career as a graphic designer.
Sure. I think you did a good intro. That is my short description of myself, but obviously, I work with a large number of clients. I went to New Paltz, graduated in '08, and kind of went through the journey of, what does it mean to work in this field? Decided to work through a few firms, hop around a little bit, kind of decide what type of job I wanted to work with, what industry. Started my own business in 2017, and kept that going. And it changes every year, right? There's a spectrum there, like how much I put in and how much I get out of it. And then now I'm sitting here at Goldman Sachs as a vice president, recent vice president, working in the design uh, design team for B2B marketing.
It's great. Did you ever think Goldman Sachs as a graphic designer?
Not at all. This was my first jump into the financial industry. It's interesting because our world revolves around money, so learning a lot of techniques while creating marketing assets and support materials for our advisors. It really kind of hones in on the profession itself, and understanding like your own benefits, your own plan, in the next, whatever it might be, 5-20 years from now. So I think that portion's pretty interesting. I think that's kind of, the not so much the day to day, but just the kind of reflect on.
Yeah, it's great. I know we're always talking to students about not just what you do, but what, and so I think that's a real example of how you adapt and it all works out. Yeah, okay. So can you share your career journey, including internships and work experience?
Yeah. I started out like most, graduating from a 4-year school and then taking an internship, navigating, how do you apply for places, having the right resume, portfolio, etc. There's just a lot of trial and errors when you're in that process. On going on a ton of interviews. It was also a strange time. It was 2008. So, not to say that this graduating class is also going to have an easy go, but I feel like there's always a cycle, right? So it's just really knowing that my first job wasn't going to be my last job. I think that's important, and just putting yourself out there. Yeah.
Great advice.
Yeah. And there's different types of jobs, right? There's working for an agency or working in-house at a company. And you kind of don't know what you want until you try it all. I think that's important.
Yeah, that's super, super important. Yeah, thank you for that. And I also love that you were talking about building your portfolio, because it's something that when I talk to seniors, that's something that you want to keep doing along the way in younger students about showing your work. Do you have any tips for building your portfolio and some of the things that would go in it? Because sometimes students, they're not huge projects, they'll go in.
Yeah. That is a challenge when you first start out, is, what that constant question, what do I put in my portfolio? It's tough because a lot of it's school work, right? Or it's internship work. I would always suggest, building out those projects that you really hold dear to you, that you could speak to, show the whole breadth of at least one project from start to finish. And then the rest could be, hopefully published work that's out there. Maybe that's through the internship, or, maybe it's worth doing something for a nonprofit if they're willing to work with you. A lot of times when you do that type of work, the nonprofit will publish the piece, and that's kind of what you're getting in return, right? Besides also getting paid, hopefully. That's just another piece of it. And quite honestly, it takes time to kind of hone in on what you want to make out of your portfolio. I personally only show the stuff that I want to keep doing. I think that's really important. Once you get to that space or that mindset, you really just, fine tune your craft and kind of put the work out there. And then most of the time, the work will come back in a way.
Yeah, that's great advice. And it also makes me think of the New Paltz design, the class that students can take. And I actually was able to work with one of the students. She Cindy Rodriguez, and did a lot of great marketing in her office. So that's a great way to build our portfolio as well. Yeah, so thank you for those tips. What would you say you're working on? What are some or projects in your queue coming?
Oh, I would say currently we're going, at Goldman here, we're going through a rebrand, which is a big step. It's a big step for the firm. It hasn't been done in 25 years, so I kind of fell into that in a way. The division that I was originally hired for back in August of 2020, which is crazy to think. That was a very different time than we are now. Was sold, so I was kind of put on some other projects and work through the system as far as, where's my place in this company, and how do I work with different team members and kind of navigate everything. And I think that holds true to really any place. Just doing good work, you'll be noticed. And a good employer will champion that and harness that for you. And I've gotten lucky to be amongst good managers and be able to get through building my career here. So that's a big project, and I'm trying to think of some other ones. I still freelance on the side, but it's mainly specific projects. It's not nearly the amount of volume I had when I first started my own company, because I was solely working for myself, which is also a great thing to kind of test as a designer, or freelancer down the road. I would highly suggest that. There's plus and negatives, but yeah, again, it's like you don't know unless you try these things out if it's right for you.
I think the great thing, your position, although it must be a lot to balance that side work, but you can rely on Sachs for the steady paycheck. But it wasn't always that way, as you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. I keep going back to like 2020, but that was just a weird time for everybody. And that was honestly when earlier in that year, it was like, okay, well, I gotta help support my family. I can't just kind of wish on clients trying to come back with marketing budgets that don't exist, right? So it's not necessarily their fault, or it's not like it's just happening in the world. So that's when I reached out to my network and was active in getting, whether it was like term or part-time work, just something, right? And that was going through recruiters, which are great. They're a great resource, and it's just kind of navigating that whole journey again of interviewing through Zoom. Like it was totally different. And after a few interviews, I was able to get a job, and just be able to kind of focus on that job was a great thing back then, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just love the Career Center, that students can work with me when they graduate as well as now, and help them with interviewing. So it's almost like you can out that, and I can help you with that. But I did also want to go back, Rob, to, you're talking about the rebranding for Goldman, which is huge, because when you think, I can see their logo, blue logo, like that's Goldman Sachs. So that you're working on their new branding is huge. And the other thing is you're working on their branding, but you're always working on your own branding, your own brand, because that's what you said, that you're always building and your professionalism through and your work. And so that's of who you are and how you've gotten opportunities. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, let's see. What would you say are some like administrative that you've had to over time?
Sorry, what was that?
Some administrative or behind the scenes skills, organizational skills, those business administrative skills you've had to kind of honed.
Yeah, I think once I decided to open my own my own shop, it was navigating, well, how do I start that? Like, do I open an LLC? Like, is it a partnership? Do I want a partner? It was a lot of question marks, right? And I only had one or two clients when I decided to do it. It was more or less like jump ship, like, here we go. Which, I'm it's not, I don't want to say, like, it kind of slightly fits my personality of, once I'm in on the ground running, I'm gonna keep going. I think that's, again, it's, you got to like test these things out. You can't get, honestly, with any job, you can't get too comfortable. And that's the reality. And that was for me with my own business. It was, I can't get too comfortable with just working with one or two clients. So I have to put myself out there. I have to build a network. And I think some of the administrative stuff was more about networking, which I didn't put enough effort in the beginning. And then I saw the benefit of going to these events, going to just talking to somebody at a coffee shop. Like, you never know where it's going to lead. A few projects came through people that no longer worked at the client I was working with and moved on to another business that was an opportunity. And I go back to this, but it's, I was just doing the work as best as I could, and they obviously, it left an impact, right? Like, so leaving impact with people is also key. And sometimes it's just as simply as reaching out, like, to somebody that you haven't spoke to in a while, and just kind of keeping that line of communication going. So I would say it was less of like paperwork. It was more of like networking was an administrative part of my business that I had to put the effort in to kind of get the response I wanted.
Yeah, I love how you're about networking, talking to somebody at a shop, going to events, because networking can sound intimidating to a student or even afterwards. So it's great, yeah, just networking anywhere, or if you're going to a wedding or anytime networking. So yeah, great. So are there any takeaways that you would want to share with students, maybe what they should be doing now to help them later on? Just any takeaways? A lot already, so.
I know. Like for recent grads, you mean?
And
That for this year or?
cool, like, but yeah, for recent grads, it can be such a different time, that transition.
Yeah. Don't feel intimidated, and don't feel nervous, because I definitely did that round of interviews, like through phone calls and what have you, and I've hit in so many dead ends. It's not the end of the world. I mean, and I feel like, a lot of people are talking about, especially in the graphic design world, as far as AI taking over. I don't see that. I see it as you can use these certain tools to build resources for your own workflow. And that could be the next reality. And I only kind of point on that because employers are going to look at the next generation of workers as they're like key into understanding what the next software is, what the latest trends are, right? So I would just suggest, when you go on first few interviews, you can talk about a timely topic that could really leave an impression on that employer, of saying, oh wow, this person knows what's happening in the world, and they're a great resource. And that's more than just design, right? That's more than just coming in and saying I could do these things. It's describing what you could offer to that job.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought up AI, and also the kind of their fresh perspective of what's going on with their generation. I know that's something we look for. Career office can't be using MySpace to advertise, or even Facebook. It's more Instagram, and that's going to change. So I think them showing adaptable too. But yeah, thanks for mentioning the AI. That's great. So I just want to thank you so much for taking your time And I know you were Professor Papalia's class, and she actually is or was on this chat. So I was so impressed by all the great things you shared. Would maybe open it up for other students as well. And you are on the Orange and Blue Network. You just joined that. Students want to reach out and have a question, they can do that. Is that okay? Great.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, Rob, have a great day. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Dawn. Thanks so much. I'll see you.
Yeah.